For the franchisee is, I guess, going back to the guerrilla marketing. Like you have to be involved um, in the business. Now, do you have to go do the flyers yourself? Absolutely not. But do you have, 2 or 3 meetings a week with your manager for 30 minutes, reviewing goals and KPIs, and then as you're doing whatever you're doing, are you measuring those results? Because it's kind of like, well, yeah, we're doing flyers, and did they work? Well, you could maybe not, but you can actually measure it if that flyer has a this week only, type in this code, right? Or if you're doing influencer marketing, rather than just having an influencer post, give them a code so you could track the code 10% off if you use XYZ code, and really getting that data. But the franchisees getting in there and being heavily involved in the business, even if you're planning on, being more passive, figure it out the ins and outs first, and that's 6 to 12 months, and then you can put it on autopilot. But you can't put it on autopilot until you learn the business inside and out.
Welcome to the Art of Franchise Marketing. Each episode takes a deep dive into the franchise space and explores how the biggest and best brands handle national branding, franchise development, employee recruitment, and localized marketing on a daily basis. This podcast is brought to you by Netcertive, a localized digital marketing partner for franchise networks. Netcertive's Madeleine Park talks shop with franchise executives to discuss what's working, what's not, and answers the question, what else can you be doing to excel at the art of franchise marketing?
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Art of Franchise Marketing. Today we have Bennett from Dirty Dough on. I'm excited to talk to you because this is the first of its kind on our podcast, and definitely something that has found its way into the hearts of lots of people across America. So Bennett, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and your brand, and what are you guys all about?
All right. I could do it in 2 minutes, or I could do it in 20 minutes. 2 minutes. Dirty Dough. I guess my background is sales. I got into Dirty Dough about 2 years ago, maybe 2.5 years ago. It was an existing cookie company that sells these large gourmet cookies that I was a passive investor in, and then he wanted to sell the brand. I ended up purchasing it and then franchising it almost 2 years ago, December of 2021. And since then, I've just been getting punched in the face every week, every day. I don't know, depending on how I'm doing. It's been good, though. We hired on a really good team led by an experienced CEO in the food and franchising space. First store opened in January of 2020. Today, we just opened our 34th location. So in 14 months, we've done 34 locations. We have another 58 or 59 under construction and around 400 that we've sold. And hence the being punched in the face. Just trying to figure out what we're doing.
I love you already, and I know this podcast is going to be great because there's some people that either get really nervous or really corporate, and they're like, it's so fun. And I'm like, no, franchising is constantly getting punched in the face. Like, no one wakes up one day and they're like, can't wait to grow up and go into franchising.
Yep.
So, what amazes me right now is that, we'll get onto all this, but you said you have how many sold?
Around 400.
400. Are you using a outsourced franchise agency, or is that all internal?
It's all internal.
That is insane. So most people would listen to this and be like, oh, Bennett's headed for disaster, growing too fast, which is definitely the curse of franchising, especially when you have a good brand and, model. But what speaks to me is that, you've already got a solid handful open and another, big chunk in development. I think that says a lot about you as a franchisor, because I think most of the time when brands grow too fast or they get in above their head, it's, we sold all of these, now what? It sounds like you and your team are taking this rapid growth and conquering it in chunks, I would say. So what is, your plan around that? Because I'm sure some franchises are listening and going, what the hell? How the hell they sell 400 already? Because a lot of times, I think I heard a stat that was like there's only a very small percentage of franchises that ever get above 10 units, let alone 100. So you guys have clearly cracked the secret sauce. So what's your plan to make sure that with this rapid growth, the whole company doesn't get punched in the face, only you?
Yes. I mean, yeah, focusing on, I mean, time and time and again, because I'm so new to this. 2 years ago, I don't know if I could tell you the difference between franchisee and franchisor. I
Oh,
was
yeah.
selling solar, so it was I had a solar company. Um, but yeah, it's selling franchises is cool and it builds the momentum and gets people excited, but it's not until they're open that anything matters. And then even when they're open, are they supported properly? So right from the get go, I mentioned. Um, we hired a CEO that her name's Jill Summer Hayes. She started doing Maui Wowie smoothies and coffee in 1983. So, 9 years before I was born, she was already
The same
franchising.
way every one time someone says that, I'm like, well, I was -5,
Yeah.
so.
So, and she grew her brand to over 700 open locations and then did it with another brand. Um, so finding somebody that's kind of been there, done that to be the helm, and then surrounding ourselves by other, really good C-level executives as well as advisors. One of our advisors owns the largest property management franchise in the nation, which maybe you're familiar with in the service space, Property Management Inc. Same
Sure
Steve
am.
Hart. Also in the service space is Scott Abbott and Chad Jones that own Five Star
Love
Franchising.
Scott. Scott was just on the
Oh,
podcast. That's
awesome. Okay.
great.
Yeah. So both of those guys are investors and advisors as well. The former CEO of Jimmy John's, his name's Craig Majewski. Now he owns 10 franchisor new and emerging food brands. So
He's in
just getting the
Craveworthy, right?
Craveworthy, yes.
Yeah.
So he's on our board of advisors as well, and just getting people with that experience, so we're not having to make all the mistakes again, but kind of leaning on those guys. And within a year, I think in May we hit 10 stores open in a month, which
Wow.
was less than a year from opening our first store. What I think really speaks to the processes that we have in place. This month we'll do another 12, I think, next month. I think 17 and another 12
Wow.
or 14 the following month. And now, you always get some pushback, but I think the operations, and here's 115 steps on how to open up a store. Every single step, you can't, miss a beat. That definitely helped. And, developing that ourselves with other advisors and all of that. But plan going forward is how do we support all these franchises as they're opening up? I do think we have the most simplistic food franchise model. We pre-produce all of the cookies in one facility. Then we ship out these frozen cases of cookie dough to each location where they just put them in the oven. So as far as food goes, I think this is as simple as it gets. Every cookie is cooking for the same time, temperature, and fan speed. You just grab a cookie puck, put it on a sheet, put it in the oven, press start. Everything's already pre-programmed. So that helps out the opening process a lot, the training process, the quality control, but it's also a lot more capital intensive for corporate to now become a food
Right.
manufacturing and logistics company. So it's very capital intensive. And then as we scale franchise, everything, economies of scale go in our favor. So we've
Mm.
lowered our cost of goods by 20% already with
Wow.
that what we sell to the franchisees in this
Mhm.
first 14 months, and expecting it to drop another 10% by the end of the year. So as we scale rapidly, that's the curse of franchising. But in our, I guess, model of business, it also helps franchises a lot because they know every time they see more stores opening, there's further cost reductions coming their way.
Sure. Yeah, and I love that you've simplified it so that it's, same cookie dough. There's no issues with someone used a bad egg or there's run out of milk in Oklahoma, like whatever it is, it's, you're taking kind of that manual labor outside of it. I was talking to Justin Rosenthal, and he was the founder of Honey Grow, which is kind of like a noodle salad bar. And he said that one of the biggest complaints from the employees was that it was time consuming and difficult to cut pineapples. So he said,
Yeah.
done, we'll just use canned pineapples because it was just so much more streamlined. So, I can't imagine having everything, you need in, like you said, pre-packaged and sent out. So I have two questions. And the first one I'll ask is, with this franchise development, are you marketing for your leads heavily, or is this organic? Because this is, a level of interest and growth that we only see really when it comes to multi-million dollar brands like Dunkin' or McDonald's. Where are these leads coming from?
Up until 2 weeks ago, they've all been organic. We started paying for leads finally. So we haven't sold any that so yeah, the 400 is kind of word of mouth. And just my personal social media, I started posting daily about a year and a half ago, and kind of built out kind of a program because I'm actually personally not really on social media, but having somebody overseas that has the program and they're getting podcasts and doing clips
Yeah.
and all of that. So actually on our Dirty Dough page, we don't advertise franchising at all. But on my personal page,
Wow.
that's kind of always just saying what we're doing, and then people inquire about franchises, and then a lot of word of mouth. We were also, I mean, the biggest thing, I'm not going to say it was my personal social media. We got sued by a competitor and made national news because we made fun of them, threw up some billboards and some professional ads, and we got on
Well, now I want to
CNBC.
know. Now I want to know.
Crumble Cookies is the
Yep.
industry leader, and they sued us back in May. We didn't have a franchise open. We had one corporate store, and they sued us over. I mean, they put side by side pictures of sprinkles, our cookie with sprinkles and their cookie with sprinkles, and our vanilla ice cream in an orange cup and their vanilla ice cream in a black crumble cup, and a Fruity Pebbles cookie and a Fruity Pebbles cookie. Like, it was just, and the fact that we use whimsical designs and they use whimsical designs, and they use a rectangular package and we use a rectangular package. Just a bunch of bullshit. So we threw up some billboards and said, like, cookies so good we're being sued, and we posted about it. And our cookies don't crumble with competition. Just a bunch of like kind of funny tongue-in-cheek things. I tagged Crumble on there, and yeah, Wall Street Journal picked it up, and a lot of other. Franchise Times just did an article
Yep.
on us again last week on
Yep.
Friday. I think it came out. Same with Forbes. Some of it kind of on this cookie wars stuff is what we dubbed it, and some of it on the growth. But I think because it gave us all that publicity early on with the Good Morning Americas and the CNBC and Wall Street Journal, now
Sure.
it's a lot easier to get picked up by the Forbes and the Franchise Times. I think we've seen in. We're going to go on Fox Business next week. That's kind
Cool.
of for another nonprofit. But these larger PR articles that will come out, I think, is what drives the awareness. And then people are like, oh, this is, let's check it out. And then you go on our franchise page and it outlines what we do pretty simply. So it gives us the eyes. And then I think we have the model and the team that attracts people to actually apply for a franchise.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, we got unlucky and lucky that we got.
Wait, I want to know for the lawsuit, did you guys settle, or did they win, or did you win?
No, we're still in it.
We're still in it.
I think there's a 0.1% chance they have at winning. Like, very, very confident. I mean, it's just a bunch of bogus claims.
A
But
bunch of dirty dough. So it's funny because I have reached out to Crumble previous to this. I'm like, hey, like, let's get you on the podcast. You guys seem cool. Like, we see you guys all over town. Like, you're a franchise. Here's the credentials. And I get that, like, no one really responds to LinkedIn posts or messages too much because they're always getting sold, or be on my podcast for $5 million. So, but I have enough, of a following. So then I messaged him a couple times, and I know probably who knows someone at every brand ever. And they straight up shaft me every time, like red receipts on. And I'm like, listen, I was just trying to help you out. So right now, I'm Team Dirty Dough, unless Crumble wants to check their LinkedIn messages. So I think that I'm really happy that you brought PR into this, because when I was at Made Pro, this was when Forbes was doing their top franchises to own lists. This was like back in 2015, 2016. I don't know if they still do it. I think they stopped. And we were getting tons of inquiries because we were in Forbes. Because of national media, I think that there's a big misunderstanding in the space where people assume if I hire a PR agency, if I hire someone to do PR internally, it's going to crank up the leads because what we need is PR, and PR is going to be that speed to lead that we need. And it's just simply not the truth unless you're able to, unless you're able to capitalize on something that's happening naturally. Like, sure, you could, maybe your PR team could get an article in Forbes. Maybe, you could pay and have one of those sponsored articles. But really, this stuff comes from, like you said, that natural, I'm grinding every day. I'm posting about our brand. I'm building a following. I'm being patient, and I understand that this is what it's going to take. And sure enough, then you're getting picked up. And then, what the big national news is doing, such as Forbes, CNBC, that's when your PR agency can really start taking advantage of the spotlight you're getting. I think that a lot of times now people are thinking, oh, all I need to do is hire a PR agency. Maybe I'll get in Forbes and I'll get 400 leads like Bennett did. And you're like, no, like this is a whole wheel that you have to have the brand, the model, the team, your personal brand, your company's brand, and then of course layering on PR, which I think is great. I think most people probably are swearing at you under their breath, but you're like, oh, I've only started paying for leads 2 months ago. Like most people are dropping like lots of money to get a handful of leads. So I think that that's really incredible. And I guess this kind of rolls into my next question of, you've got the leads. I think it's the cookie wars thing. That's great. Like you can't even tell me that Crumble probably doesn't get some enjoyment out of it, because I'm sure they're getting just as much, attention, whatever. But why cookies? Because I can see like investors who which might not be your target audience, but I could see, franchise investors being like, is this a trend thing? Like, this is not a Baskin Robbins. Like, why would I buy a cookie franchise? Sure, people love cookies, but what, could I possibly succeed in franchising, owning a cookie company? And what would you say to those people?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, every food is cyclical. So I
Right.
definitely think we're in the peak of the cookies, right? Or maybe it was last year that was the peak.
Let's
It's
hope
gonna,
not.
it's becoming more saturated now, but there's brands that have been around for several decades. So there's
Mhm.
Mrs. Fields and Great American Cookie Company. They've both been around for 46 years. And then Insomnia Cookies came on about 20 years ago. They've
Mhm.
had their ups and their downs, but they're multiple hundred locations open per brand still.
Sure.
So I think that's, comparing it to cupcakes or frozen yogurt, that was never done before. Like cookies are something that we've always grown up on. And everybody eats a cookie a month anyway, right?
Mhm.
What's new in this segment is these large gourmet, multi-flavored cookies delivered fresh to your door. How long is that going to be hot for? Who knows? You ask Crumble, their pitch is, no, this is pizza. We're just what, Domino's did to pizza delivery, we're doing with cookies. It's going to be a brand new segment forever. And if that's true, awesome. And if it's not true, that's okay. Because what I've done is I've modeled our brand, like consumer facing, we compete with that large gourmet, multi-flavored weekly rotation cookie space.
Yeah.
And to my knowledge, all of the other dozen companies in that space, they all do everything by hand. Every store orders a 50-pound bag of flour. And then
Mhm.
they put it in a mixer, and a teenager is mixing 60 cookies at a time and hand weighing it and hand portioning it. And you need 1,500 to 2,000 square feet and lots of different employees and lots of waste and quality control. Where what we've done is we've modeled it more like the Mrs. Fields Great American Cookie Company or Insomnia that have been around for several decades. Less than 1,000 square feet, no mixers, because we're doing all of that for you. One employee putting a cookie puck in the oven. The difference is because we found a specialty machine to make these giant gourmet multi-flavored cookies. So like one of our cookies, it looks like a peanut butter cookie on the outside because it's peanut butter dough. And on the middle, there's chocolate dough. And in the very center, there's hot fudge. So you already have this multi-flavored cookie experience. So we've modeled it after brands that have been around for decades using their model. So I know that sales will come down to earth. And what's our break-even point? How do we have the lowest break-even point possible to mitigate risk? And we also do mobile franchising. So you could buy like a food truck or food trailer. So that's kind of I guess the pitch to the investors is, yeah, I think nobody knows what's going to go on in the future, but we do know what's gone on in the last 46 years.
Mhm.
And there's several brands that have been around with multiple hundred locations because of the centralized production model, which we're doing. We just have the advantage to also participate in the gourmet, giant, multi-flavored cookie business.
I love that. And it's so real, which is what I appreciate you about you, Bennett, because I am like the classic entrepreneur, but also the classic franchising person where like I have a million ideas. One, I don't want to build them myself. But, I talked to one of my mentors once and he had said, I was like, "Oh, here's what I want to invest my time and money into. Here's four different things." Three of which were like brand new ideas. I'm feeling a need, a niche. There's nothing like it in the space. And he chose the other one. And for reference, this was a recruiting company that I am working on for just franchising execs who, because I always say once you enter franchising, you never leave. And I was like, well, why should I go after this one? This has been done before. He's like, exactly. It's already been proven out. Like people need recruiters. It's been around forever. So I definitely think that there's a lot of trust and history, like you said, within the cookie company. So while sure, it might seem like the marketing, it's trendy, it's fun, but last time I checked, nobody was going to stop eating cookies, right? And
Yeah.
I like the fact that you're like, sure, we're in the height of cookies right now and we're going to capitalize on that and that's great, but here's what we do and here's what you can expect when and if sales ever do drop. So I think that that's a mark of a great franchisor is understanding that, the glasses are not always rose colored. I've talked to a lot that it's like, we're the greatest, nothing's ever going to go wrong. And I'm like, okay, okay. Um, so that, that I like that a lot. And especially with the mobile truck, I think the problem I have with, or I foresee with we're going to be the pizza, the Domino's of cookies is like, great, but everyone needs a meal. Not everyone needs a dessert, right? So I don't know what that looks like. Um, but I will say that, I have three kids. There's a million school events and Kona Ice, any sort of food truck that has the desserts, they kill it because
Yeah.
when you're on the go and the kids are, whatever. So that I like that you have different approaches in your market to make sure that you're always growing. And if anything, there's other avenues in which you can expand your brand.
And they really feed
So,
off of each other as well. I mean,
right.
you go to a sporting event or carnival or whatever, and you see the brand for the first time, and your margins are huge. You're selling a cookie for $5 or $6,
Mhm.
and that cookie's costing you a buck, including the labor, like delivered to you. So that, people recognize your brand for the first time, and then you have this brick and mortar stores to kind of go capture that repeat business. But
Mhm.
Jill, her company, the Maui Wowie Smoothies and Coffee, it had over 600 mobile franchises. She was the first ever mobile franchise business in the world back in '83. So that's
Well,
like where her area expertise is, and she's like, what's recession proof? Mobile franchising, because you don't have. She's like, I've been doing it for 4 decades now, and we survive all of the downturns because people will still go out even when they don't have money. They'll still go out to the carnival or a football game, and they'll still splurge and spend $5 or $6 on a cookie or a smoothie or whatever. And then you don't have your labor, you don't have your fixed costs of your lease and all of that. So it just really reduces the risk. And then when you pair it with brick and mortar stores, they really feed off of each other.
Yeah, and it's so true. Like when we take the kids to any sort of school event or whatever, I'm like, "Do you have cash on you?" Because there's always like you expect to
Yeah.
pay for some sort of treat, some sort of toy, so you're avoiding meltdowns. I know most people are like, "Maddie, that's not good gentle parenting." I'm like, "Listen, I got gangsters in my house. Like they will go toe to toe with me." Um, so my next question then on that is are you able to purchase a dirty dough and just do mobile, or do they have to have the build out as well?
No, we offer them separately. So we
Nice.
encourage them to do both. So there's a discount on the franchise fee of the mobile if you already have a brick and mortar. You get like $10,000 off or something like that. But
Mhm.
people have just purchased mobile and people have just purchased brick and mortar. I think out of the 400, maybe 15 of them are mobile. So we're really just starting to push it. We just have a few kind of on the road right now, but we are super excited about it.
I love that. And then for your brick and mortar, are you building all of them, or are they able to go into like a mall and
Yeah,
brand
it's
it and do that?
not a mall, just because malls are dead these
Yep.
days, but like a
Fair,
strip mall.
fair.
So it's like, ideally you want 900 to 1,000 square feet there in a strip mall, um, and you're just leasing a spot. Like it would be awesome. Like a few of our franchises have wanted, to kind of own the building itself, which
Sure.
is totally fine. That totally works.
Yeah, if you want to
But
do it,
yeah,
more
yeah,
power to
it's
you.
such a small space that
Yeah.
it's not the McDonald's model that, hey, own the real estate, be your
Mhm.
own landlord. Well, it's like you're not really your own landlord
Yeah.
because it's only 1,000 square feet. You'd really be a landlord of another 10 people. So a little different.
Um, so you have the build out, you have the leads. Now talk to me about the marketing. Do your franchisees, and I'm sure you have, a marketing plan in place, but is this something that once they grand open, the community kind of falls in love with and they don't have to spend a lot on marketing? Or is this something where they do need to pump, a good investment in monthly, quarterly, annually to continue growing? Because for home services, and I've started a couple brands from the ground up where we're like, okay, we're going to need to put in 50K into marketing, and it didn't even make a dent. And people are like, who? I'm like, what do you mean who? That was like my new car money.
Yeah.
So is it, are you seeing that kind of thing when a new location opens, or is it a little bit on the flip side where people find out about dirty dough and then next thing you know, there's 100 customers walking through the door? So for the marketing, is it a lot of investment up front, or is it a lot of kind of guerrilla word of mouth? You put one investment in and it snowballs from there.
I wish our franchisees would spend that $50,000 in marketing.
So,
Um,
I'm
we,
hurting from those spends.
we do the 3%, brand building fee,
Sure.
and we allocate that specifically that store, within a 5 mile radius.
Hmm.
But no, in our FDD, we recommend they spend an additional 1 to 3 thousand a month.
Sure.
And what we've seen from, because we run some corporate stores as well,
Hmm.
is food brands are, if you have a good grand opening, you have an amazing first day, first week, first month, and it's how to keep that up there. So you do get that brand awareness. Are you just giving out a free cookie, or are you saying a free cookie for an app download? And then when they
Hmm.
download the app, you're capturing their name, phone number, email address, birthday. And then as they come into the store or you're doing other things, are you capturing them on social media, getting a like and a follow? So every time you push out, because we do Facebook and Instagram pages per
Hmm.
franchise. So every franchise has their own. We run that for them. It's all the same post. So it's very low, I guess, overhead to manage that.
Sure.
But we do that for them so they can build their own audiences. And every time that post goes out there, even though that store only has 3,000 following and our corporate page has 150,000 following, whatever, you get a better engagement, or at least as it pertains to that location, because it's
Sure.
your actual audience. So are you doing those things that upfront, that's first, we say it's 6 to 12 months of a sprint. Now, we don't require people to be owner operated like a Crumble or like a Chick-fil-A that you have to live in the store.
Mm.
To me, that's just like, I don't want to buy my own job, but it does require the owner to be more hands-on in that 6 to 12 months, because there's so much you can
Sure.
do in that 6 to 12 months that will stick with you forever. So if you go get 500 five-star reviews or 1,000 five-star reviews, that sticks with you for 10 years. If you
Right.
go get 1,000 app downloads per month, that sticks with you for the next 10 years. If you get the Facebook following and the Instagram, that sticks with you forever. So not so much you just have to dump a lot of money in, but it's more training employees on, hey, welcome to Dirty Dough. Are you a loyalty member?
Hmm.
Right? Because if they say no, hey, I'll sign you up for a free cookie. Or if they say yes, oh, let me use my points. Because even if you have points, if they don't ask you, you typically don't do it. So
Right.
more of it is kind of that guerrilla marketing. And what do you do when your employee is slow? Even if you only have one employee, but if nobody's there, we'll have some flyers printed out that just go canvas the parking lot real quick.
Hmm.
Free cookie with an app download. And that's kind of our go-to, free cookie with an app download, because we're capturing their information and we're getting them in store in order to redeem that, and they get a free product, and it only cost us, a dollar for the cookie and 20 cents for the packaging. So it is definitely a sprint for that 6 to 12 months, and making sure everybody who's coming in your door at that grand opening, that first month or two, is you're capturing their information and then doing effective retargeting.
I really like that it was, I hear a lot of brands say, oh, the first session is free, the first bite is free, the first meal is free, because they're just completely laying down on the fact that we have a great service or product and people are going to love it. Sure, but then what happens after the fact? People are busy. So I like that it's like, nope, download the app. We're going to give you the free cookie. It's not because we're trying to sell you, but it's so we can remind you and potentially sell you, in the future. So I think that that's a great tidbit for people to hear out there. And especially for, when employees are slow. All franchises have down periods, whether it's daily, whether it's seasonal, and really putting that importance of the guerrilla marketing. I think what's hard a lot is that owners either have trouble delegating, and when it comes to guerrilla marketing, that's something that they're not going to do, but it's also not something high on the priority of delegation because they want other people in their business focused on whatever else it is. And for some reason, it never gets the attention it deserves. But the truth is no matter what business you open, the more you get out in the community, the better you're going to be. Sure, you might feel those effects on your feet or on your printing or, whatever. You're taking your kids out. One of our brands is Men in Kilts. I send my kids out in baby kilts like you wouldn't imagine. I'm like, we're going to the carnival. We're all wearing kilts. Like we're all selling window cleaning in kilts. And I think it's funny because like we talked about with the Fran Dev, marketing is layers, right? There's no more you can send a direct mail, get $200 a client, right? This just doesn't work anymore because there's so many touch points. And, the same thing is with guerrilla marketing. If anything, guerrilla marketing has a higher ROI or direct to ROI because it's that in-person face-to-face. But if not, it is another layer that you have to do. You can't just do it once and say, oh, it doesn't work. I canvassed the parking lot one time and it didn't work. I didn't get a client. I'm like, well, maybe you got a client from that also saw you on Facebook. So all of that kind of retargeting and, making sure that every ounce of your time and your employees' time that you're paying for is accounted for, and marketing is a great way to fill that slot. So I feel like I could talk to you all day, but we are coming up on time. So I have a couple final questions to ask of you. First being, if you had a piece of advice to give to a franchisee, what would that be? And if you have a piece of advice to give to a franchisor, what would that be?
Okay. For the franchisee is, I guess, going back to the guerrilla marketing, like you have to be involved, in the business. Now, do you have to go do the flyers yourself? Absolutely not. But do you have, 2 or 3 meetings a week with your manager for 30 minutes, reviewing goals and KPIs, and then as you're doing whatever you're doing, are you measuring those results? Because it's kind of like, well, yeah, we're doing flyers, and did they work? Well, you could, maybe not, but you can actually measure it if that flyer has a this week only, type in this code, right? Or if you're doing influencer marketing, rather than just having an influencer post, give them a code so you could track the code 10% off if you use XYZ code, and really getting that data. But the franchisees getting in there and being heavily involved in the business, even if you're planning on, being more passive, figure it out, the ins and outs first, and that's 6 to 12 months, and then you can put it on autopilot. But you can't put it on autopilot until you learn the business inside and out. It's still a business. It's not it's not the stocks.
It's not a Tesla that can just drive me around.
Franchisor, my piece of advice was, hire the right team. Mm-hmm. I'm just, again, when I say last year or 2 years ago, I didn't know the difference between franchisee and franchisor. I'm not kidding. I didn't know what the difference was. I never looked into franchising. So, and luckily I was able to kind of get up to speed very quickly, but I'm not an expert in in-store operations, nor in logistics, nor in food manufacturing, nor in supporting franchisees. But I was able to build that team around me and really rely on them to do what they're best at. What I'm really good at is the sales side. Not that I'm on the sales calls myself, but generally we've done a few rounds of investment, kind of investor relationships, and all the legal side is a pain in the butt. Doing like these podcasts, like not saying that everybody could, run a franchisor business, but there's a lot of people out there that can. but there's really only one person that could kind of tell the story of the business and be out there and be on the kind of front lines on the podcast and the PR and doing all of that. And that's where I focus most of my time.
I love that. And lastly, what's next for Dirty Dough? Are you going to expand to your products at one point? Are you guys just hoping to go as much as possible in the US? Do you want to go international? What would you like to see for your brand?
Yeah, I mean, we want to keep the menu very simple, but we are introducing coffee in a handful of locations to help drive those morning sales, really focusing on the catering, because I think we're the only cookie company in this gourmet space that does same-day catering, and really trying to push on those strengths, trying to get as much data as we can as far as franchisees can always see what their labor percentages are on a day-to-day and a week-to-week, and where their sales are on a week-to-week versus day-to-day. Are they up? Are they down? If they're down, how many more sales do they need per day, per hour? What is the customer traffic per hour, so then I can staff it appropriately? And really trying, there's a lot of things that with data, you can make a lot better decisions. So we're very highly focused on that right now. Some AI, artificial intelligence, that will measure the circumference or the diameter of our cookie, so we could see every cookie that goes out. Was it baked too much or not enough? Are the toppings and the drizzles touching the side of the box? Because we don't want that. Is it exactly 6 zigzags and 3 swirls? And just trying to do some unique things to make it easier everything is, how do we become and maintain the position of the most simplistic food franchise or franchise that you could own. So very focused on that. International, yeah, that's on the radar. We've had dozens of inquiries internationally. One of our investors was the former VP of Domino's he opened up the Europe, Middle East, and Africa market. Spent a decade or so abroad. So he's kind of doing that already in the background. We have an agreement with him, which, I think he said 8 to 10 months for him to kind of develop it, which we're not going to be ready for anyway, but at least we can tell these leads coming in, hey, we're working on it. This is kind of timelines and plans. This is what we're looking for. So I think the international play will be a big one, but we can't get over our skis more than we already are.
You can't take more punches to the face.
Yeah. So, it's 34 stores open and 59 additional leases signed, so under construction. We need to get these first 90 whatever stores open and humming before we really focus on the international play, but it is on the radar.
I love that. Well, Bennett, we're excited to watch Dirty Dough grow, and we are in your corner for whatever you need. I appreciate you sharing your knowledge, and I look forward to the cookies coming to my house at any day now.
Yes.
Just kidding. I gotta lose the baby weight, but also, I don't know, you're talking about those multi-flavored cookies. You might have done something there.
Opposites about to you.
Thanks, Bennett.
Thanks for listening to The Art of Franchise Marketing. This show is brought to you by NetCertive. We help franchise brands and multi-location businesses run localized digital marketing at scale. To learn more, visit netcertive.com.